The massive chamber of the Galactic Concorde seemed designed to intimidate. Soaring crystalline ceilings captured the light of 3 nearby stars, casting prismatic patterns across walls embedded with living technological interfaces. Around the central speaking platform, to discussing this and many other matters as members of this esteemed body. As she stepped away from the platform, she felt the speculative gazes following her. The Kathari counselor's eyes narrowed thoughtfully, while across the chamber, a representative of the reclusive Nidar species, known for their exceptional intelligence and neutrality, tilted their head in apparent reassessment. The opening session continued with procedural matters, but the atmosphere had changed. What had begun as a routine welcoming of an insignificant species had developed an undercurrent of tension that even the most politically oblivious delegates could sense. Ambassador Sharp had planted a seed, and several of the most influential members of the Concorde were now wondering exactly what this unassuming human knew. Hours later, in the private quarters assigned to the Earth delegation, Evelyn received her senior intelligence officer, Commander Ressa, a woman of Indonesian descent whose impeccable service record had made her the natural choice for this sensitive mission. They took the bait, Ressa observed, activating a privacy field that would scramble any surveillance. General Aroth, particularly, seemed unsettled. Evelyn nodded, setting aside her diplomatic composure to reveal the steel beneath. She gestured toward a holographic display showing 12 faces, men and women of diverse backgrounds, all in the uniforms of the United Earth Marine Corps. "Have we confirmed the final details on Ramirez and Tanaka?" she asked, studying the faces she had committed to memory months ago. "Yes, Ambassador. The forensic analysis is conclusive. All 12 were executed after capture, despite clearly identifying themselves as military personnel entitled to prisoner of war protections under both Earth and Concorde conventions." Evelyn's expression hardened as she touched the display, bringing forward the service record of Staff Sergeant Maria Ramirez. Her daughter turns 7 next month. "The threats are mobilizing near our research station at Vant 12, Ressa continued. "Standard intimidation tactics. They're expecting us to either back down diplomatically or react militarily. Either way, they win the narrative. And the other factions? The Zyrex are watching closely. Our intelligence suggests they've been approached by the Kellery Mining Guild about potential resource agreements should Earth be denied Concorde membership." Evelyn nodded slowly, taking this in. "They all think we're naive, Commander. Just another young species they can manipulate or intimidate into a subordinate position." Her eyes returned to the display of the 12 fallen Marines. "They have no idea what humanity is capable of when provoked." The next formal session of the Concorde began with routine matters, but the chamber grew unnaturally quiet when Ambassador Sharp requested the floor. Unlike the previous day, she carried no coffee mug, and her demeanor had shifted almost imperceptibly from deferential to focused. "Distinguished representatives," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly. "Earth wishes to formally address a matter that concerns the foundational principles of this august body. Specifically, the treatment of prisoners of war and the enforcement of the Concorde's own established protocols regarding military engagements." General Aroth immediately rose. "Supreme Counselor, this is inappropriate. Earth has not even been granted associate status. They cannot raise procedural matters in full session." The Kathari elder's ears flattened slightly, a sign of annoyance to those familiar with her species. "The floor has been granted to Earth's representative. Please continue, Ambassador Sharp." "Thank you, Counselor." Evelyn activated a small device that interfaced with the chamber's central display. 12 Earth Marines disappeared 8 months ago while on a routine patrol near the Cygnus boundary. Their ship was found adrift, but the personnel were missing. Images appeared. The recovered vessel, service records, last transmissions. Nothing particularly dramatic, but presented with methodical precision. "A most unfortunate incident," the Zyrex representative interjected smoothly. "Space exploration carries inherent risks, especially for less experienced species." Evelyn nodded, as if in agreement. "Indeed. which is why Earth launched a thorough investigation. The next image that appeared caused an immediate stir, a high-resolution photograph showing several Threk soldiers surrounding kneeling human figures, clearly Earth Marines. The humans' hands were bound behind their backs. These images were recovered from an automated probe. Evelyn continued calmly. As you can see, our personnel were captured alive, clearly wearing standardized military identification matching Concord protocols for prisoner recognition. General Aroth stood abruptly. This is manufactured evidence. The Threk's hegemony rejects these fabrications and will not be subjected to slander by a species barely capable of interstellar communication. Evelyn didn't raise her voice. We anticipated skepticism, General, which is why Earth took extraordinary measures to verify what happened next. The display changed again, this time showing footage that caused several delegates to gasp. The kneeling Earth Marines, being systematically executed by Threk soldiers, each with a precise energy weapon discharge to the back of the head. The chamber erupted into chaos. This session will come to order. Supreme Counselor Zari's amplified voice cut through the uproar. When relative quiet had been restored, she fixed her amber gaze on General Aroth. The Threk's representative will respond to these allegations. Aroth's scales had darkened with anger, or perhaps something else. If these humans were executed, they were not operating under recognized military protocols. They were spies, insurgents, or worse. They were prisoners of war, Evelyn corrected firmly. Entitled to protection under Section 17 of the Concord's own military engagement protocols, which the Threk's hegemony ratified 3 centuries ago. Ambassador, the Xyrix representative interjected, clearly attempting to defuse the situation. Even if these regrettable events occurred as you claim, what exactly does Earth hope to achieve by raising this matter? Surely you understand that border conflicts are complex. Earth understands conflict very well, Evelyn replied. Our history is filled with it, but we also understand accountability. She turned back to the chamber's display, showing the faces of the 12 Marines again. Earth demands a formal inquiry into the execution of our personnel, appropriate reparations to their families, an immediate withdrawal of all Threk's military vessels currently encircling our research facility at Van 12. The chamber fell silent as the implication sank in. Earth, the newcomer, the primitive species, was not just complaining. It was making demands of one of the Concord's most powerful military forces. General Aroth's laugh broke the silence. Or what, Ambassador? Your species will challenge the Threk's hegemony? A civilization that has conquered 17 star systems while your people were still using combustion engines. Evelyn met his gaze without flinching. We sincerely hope diplomatic solutions can be found, General. The Threks do not respond to threats from inferior species, Aroth declared. In fact, I am authorized to inform this assembly that the Threk's hegemony is instituting a formal blockade of all Earth facilities beyond your home system until this slander is withdrawn. Any Earth vessel approaching Van 12 will be considered hostile and treated accordingly. With that, he strode from the chamber, his delegation following in formation. As murmurs spread through the assembly, Evelyn noticed several representatives exchanging glances, some concerned, others calculating. The Kellery Mining Guild representatives appeared particularly pleased with this development. Ambassador Sharp, Supreme Counselor Zari, addressed her. The Concord cannot intervene in bilateral disputes without consensus. I must caution Earth against escalation. Earth has no desire for escalation, Counselor, Evelyn replied. But neither will we abandon our principles or our people. She gathered her materials with unhurried movements. History has taught us that peace cannot exist without justice. As the session adjourned, the Nidar representative approached Evelyn, speaking in the soft, melodic tones characteristic of their species. Most new species seek alliances or technology, Ambassador. Earth appears to seek accountability. Fascinating. We seek to be good neighbors, Evelyn replied. But good neighbors respect boundaries and acknowledge wrongs. The Nidar's multifaceted eyes studied her with unnerving intensity. "The Threx rarely acknowledge anything, Ambassador. Be careful you have not started something your species cannot finish." Evelyn smiled slightly. "Thank you for your concern, Representative. Earth may be young, but we have learned a few things about finishing what others start." At the research station Vant 12, Dr. Eleanor Zhang peered through the observation dome at the 3 Threx warships that had taken position around the facility. As the station's director, she had received the priority transmission from Earth Command just minutes ago. "Are they really expecting us to just sit here under blockade?" her deputy director asked, a note of anxiety in his voice. The station's 52 scientists and support staff had been effectively cut off from outside contact. Dr. Zhang shook her head. "Command says to maintain normal operations and avoid any provocative actions. Apparently, diplomatic channels are working on a resolution. Those are Threx Dominator-class warships," he pointed out. "Each one could reduce this station to atoms in seconds. If they wanted us dead, we'd be dead already," Zhang replied pragmatically. "This is about intimidation. They expect us to panic, maybe try something desperate that would justify stronger measures. And we're just supposed to trust that diplomacy will work? The Threx aren't exactly known for their negotiating skills." Dr. Zhang smiled slightly. Command seemed unusually confident. "They mentioned something called protocol misdirection is already in place." She turned away from the viewport. "In the meantime, we continue our research. The quantum resonance experiments won't run themselves." What Dr. Zhang didn't share was the final, cryptic line of the transmission. "Be advised, you have friends closer than they appear." In her secure communications room aboard the diplomatic vessel Terra Pacem, Ambassador Sharp was engaged in an emergency conference with Earth's highest military and diplomatic leadership. The quantum encrypted connection ensured absolute privacy despite the proximity of numerous alien intelligence services. "The Threx have taken the bait exactly as predicted," Admiral Hassan reported. His holographic image flickered slightly, a side effect of the extreme encryption. "Their blockade of Vant 12 is exactly the justification we needed." "Status of our assets?" Evelyn asked. Ghost Fleet Units 1 through 7 maintained quantum stealth throughout their deployment. They've been in position around Vant 12 for 17 days, completely undetected by Threx sensors. Security Director Okafor, a stern-faced woman responsible for Earth counterintelligence operations, added, "Our technical teams confirm the Threx remain unaware of our quantum cloaking capabilities. They believe their sensors represent the pinnacle of detection technology." "And the station personnel?" Evelyn inquired. "Secure and calm," Admiral Hassan confirmed. "Dr. Zhang is maintaining normal operations as instructed." Evelyn nodded, studying the tactical display showing the positions of both the visible Threx vessels and Earth's hidden fleet. "Have Ghost Fleet maintain stealth protocols, but move to engagement positions. Weapons hot, but secured. We won't fire first, but we will be prepared to respond instantly if the Threx threaten our people." As the military leaders acknowledged the orders, Earth's Foreign Secretary spoke up. "Ambassador, your confrontational approach in the Concord Chamber has generated significant diplomatic chatter. Multiple delegations are requesting private audiences to clarify Earth's position." "Let them wait," Evelyn replied. "Right now, uncertainty works in our favor. Let them wonder exactly what capabilities and evidence Earth might possess." "The Threx will never back down publicly," Admiral Hassan warned. "Their culture doesn't permit displays of weakness." "They don't need to back down publicly," Evelyn answered. "They just need to understand that harming our people carries consequences they aren't prepared for." She studied the 12 faces that remained displayed on her private screen. "We owe these Marines that much." Aboard the Threx Command vessel Dominant Claw, General Aeroth was experiencing something unfamiliar: doubt. "Our intelligence indicated Earth possessed no vessels with advanced cloaking capabilities," his second-in-command reminded him. "Their technology is at least a century behind the Concord standard." "Then explain this," Aeroth growled, gesturing at the sensor readings a junior officer had just brought to his attention. The holographic display showed momentary energy fluctuations surrounding the Vant 12 station, patterns consistent with quantum wake signatures from large vessels operating under stealth systems. Could be sensor ghosts, his second suggested. The humans might be attempting to deceive us with false readings. Aroth's scaled face contorted in concentration. No. Deploy additional sensor drones. Maximum dispersion, passive scan only. He moved to a tactical display of the blockade and prepared to recalibrate our sensors to detect quantum phase distortions. His second blinked in surprise. General, such detection systems are still experimental. We've only received the first prototypes from. Do it, Aroth interrupted. Something isn't right here. An hour later, the general stared in disbelief at the updated sensor readings. 7 Earth vessels, each comparable in size to a Threx light cruiser, had somehow positioned themselves in a perfect containment formation around his 3 warships. Based on the sensor readings, they had been there for days, completely invisible to standard detection systems. Impossible, he muttered. Their technological development cannot have advanced this rapidly. His second-in-command's voice was tight with concern. General, these Earth vessels appear to have targeting solutions locked on all 3 of our ships. They're bluffing, Aroth insisted, but with less conviction than before. Even with stealth capability, their weapons cannot match ours. We cannot confirm that, General. Our intelligence on Earth weapons technology may be outdated. Aroth felt the weight of command pressing down on him. The humans had outmaneuvered him, not militarily, not yet, but strategically. If he engaged and destroyed these vessels, he risked full-scale war with an adversary whose capabilities were clearly beyond what the Threx had assessed. If he withdrew, he would face disgrace. His communicator chimed with an incoming transmission, directly from the Supreme Counselor of the Galactic Concord. Back in the Concord chamber, the Assembly had reconvened in emergency session. The atmosphere was tense, with delegations clustering in hushed conversations. When Supreme Counselor Zuri called the session to order, all eyes turned to the center of the room, where Ambassador Sharp stood calmly. The Concord has received troubling information, Zuri announced. It appears that a significant military confrontation may be developing at the Earth Research Facility designated VANT-12. Ambassador Sharp has requested this emergency session to address the situation. Evelyn activated the chamber's main display, showing a tactical overview of VANT-12. The 3 Threx warships were clearly visible. Then, with a simple command, she revealed what had been hidden. 7 Earth vessels surrounding the Threx ships in perfect tactical position. Gasps echoed through the chamber as delegates realized the implications. Earth had not only managed to deploy advanced vessels undetected, but had effectively reversed the blockade, trapping the Threx warships. As you can see, Evelyn stated calmly, Earth has taken defensive measures to protect our research personnel. We have not engaged the Threx vessels, despite their hostile posture and their commander's history of executing prisoners of war. The Xyrix representative's skin had paled to an almost white color, a sign of extreme agitation in their species. Ambassador, are you suggesting that Earth possesses a fleet equipped with quantum stealth technology? That is unexpected. Earth possesses many capabilities, Evelyn replied evenly. We had hoped not to demonstrate them in this manner, but the safety of our people is non-negotiable. The Kellery Mining Guild representative stood. This is clearly an Earth provocation. They have escalated a simple border incident into a potential interstellar conflict. 12 executed prisoners is not a simple border incident, Evelyn countered, her voice finally showing an edge of anger. With a gesture, she brought the execution footage back to the main display. This is a war crime by the standards of every civilized species represented in this chamber. The footage played silently, the methodical execution of kneeling, bound humans impossible to misinterpret. The chamber had fallen completely silent. Earth does not seek conflict, Evelyn continued when the footage ended. We seek justice, accountability, and the assurance that such atrocities will not be repeated against humans or any other species. The Kathari Supreme Counselor's voice was grave. I have spoken directly with General Aroth. The Threx hegemony has agreed to withdraw their vessels from Vant 12, pending a formal investigation into these allegations. A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. The Threx never backed down from a show of force. Additionally, Zari continued, I am convening a special judicial committee to review the evidence regarding the treatment of Earth prisoners. All member species are reminded of their obligations under the military engagement protocols. As the session continued, Evelyn noticed a distinct change in how the delegates regarded her. The dismissive glances had been replaced by calculating assessment. Earth had demonstrated not only unexpected technological capability, but strategic patience and precision. When a Nidar representative approached her after the session, their melodic voice held a note of newfound respect. You laid a trap for the Threx, Ambassador. Most impressive. Not a trap, Evelyn corrected. A test. One they failed. The Threx will not forget this humiliation, the Nidar warned. They may seek other ways to strike at Earth. Then they will find us equally prepared, Evelyn replied. In the days that followed, the blockade of Vant 12 was lifted. The Threx warships departed under the watchful eyes of Earth's Ghost Fleet, which maintained its protective formation around the research station. The Judicial Committee moved with unusual swiftness, perhaps spurred by the dramatic shift in power dynamics. Their preliminary findings confirmed what Earth had claimed. The 12 Marines had been executed while captive, in direct violation of Concord protocols. More surprising was the broader impact of Earth's stand. Multiple species that had previously dismissed humanity began reaching out diplomatically. Trade inquiries increased. Fourfold, cultural exchange requests flooded Earth's diplomatic channels. In her quarters, Evelyn reviewed these developments with Commander Ressa. It's working better than we anticipated, Ressa observed. Earth is suddenly being taken seriously across the board. Fear is a powerful motivator, Evelyn noted without satisfaction. But fear alone isn't enough for lasting change. She activated a secure channel to Earth Command, receiving immediate clearance for her next initiative. It's time for Phase 2. 3 days later, Ambassador Sharp addressed the Concord again. This time, there was no need to request attention. The chamber fell silent the moment she stepped onto the platform. Distinguished representatives, she began. Earth has given considerable thought to recent events and their implications for our shared galactic community. While justice for our fallen personnel is important, we believe something more fundamental is at stake. She gestured, and the display activated, showing a complex document. Earth proposes the establishment of an interstellar convention on military conduct and the treatment of prisoners, inspired by agreements that help civilization flourish on our own world. The display showed key provisions: mandatory identification of military personnel, prohibition of summary executions, requirements for medical treatment of wounded combatants, neutral third-party monitoring of detention facilities, and mechanisms for prisoner exchange. Species that ratify this convention will receive preferential status in trade agreements with Earth. We are particularly interested in sharing our medical technologies and agricultural methods with those committed to civilized conduct, even in conflict. The implicit message was clear. Earth was now leveraging its unexpected position of strength to reshape Concord norms. The reaction was mixed. Some delegates immediately signaled support, particularly those from species with less military power who had often suffered from the aggression of stronger neighbors. Others, including the Kellery Mining Guild and several authoritarian regimes, protested that Earth was overstepping its authority as a new member. The Threx delegation was conspicuously silent, still processing their humiliation at Vant 12. In the diplomatic corridors following the session, Evelyn found herself approached by an unlikely figure, Zyric's Ambassador Thalos, whose dismissive attitude had been particularly cutting during Earth's initial presentation. A bold proposal, Ambassador Sharp, Thalos conceded, the neural pathways visible beneath his translucent skin pulsing with increased activity. Though perhaps naive, the Concord has existed for millennia without such restrictions. And yet even the oldest institutions can benefit from fresh perspectives, Evelyn replied. Earth's history taught us that the true measure of civilization is not technological advancement, but how we treat each other, especially at our worst moments. A charming sentiment, Thalos commented, his tone suggesting it was anything but. However, the Zyrex Collective must consider the practical implications. Our current agreements with the Kellery Mining Guild, for instance, might be complicated by such a convention. Evelyn smiled pleasantly. Indeed, speaking of the Mining Guild, Earth's intelligence services recently compiled an interesting analysis of their resource extraction practices in the Proxima sector. I'd be happy to share it with you privately. Thalos's neural pathways flashed with alarm. A biological tell he couldn't hide. What sort of analysis? One documenting systematic violations of existing Concord labor protocols, environmental regulations, and profit-sharing requirements with indigenous populations. The Zyrex might find it enlightening, given your extensive investments in Kellery operations. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Support Earth's initiative, or find yourself implicated in the Guild's violations. Similar conversations played out across the diplomatic landscape over the following weeks. Earth representatives met privately with delegations from dozens of species, each time bringing carefully prepared information packets tailored to that species' particular vulnerabilities or interests. For militaristic cultures like the Threx, Earth highlighted the convention's provisions protecting their own personnel in the event of capture. For trading powers, Earth emphasized preferential access to human medical technology, particularly promising given humanity's unique approaches to genetic medicine. For smaller powers, Earth offered security partnerships and defensive technologies. And for those who remained resistant, Earth's intelligence services had compiled extensive dossiers on violations, corruption, or compromising activities that could be made public. The Kellery Mining Guild, particularly outraged by Earth's growing influence, attempted a desperate countermove. Working through proxies, they launched a sophisticated cyber attack against Earth's diplomatic systems, hoping to uncover evidence that the execution footage had been fabricated. The attack failed spectacularly. Not only were Earth's systems protected by quantum encryption beyond the attacker's capabilities, but the intrusion attempt was traced directly back to Kellery facilities. When Evelyn presented the evidence to the Concord, the Guild's representatives faced universal condemnation. Earth considers this cyber attack an act of aggression, Evelyn declared to the Assembly. However, we are willing to accept the dissolution of the Guild's current leadership in full compliance with our proposed convention as satisfactory resolution. Backed into a corner, the Guild's governing council resigned in disgrace. Their replacements hastily announced full support for Earth's initiative. One by one, species began publicly endorsing the convention. The Zyrex, despite initial resistance, became early signatories after Ambassador Thalos had a productive private discussion with Evelyn. The Kathari threw their considerable moral authority behind the effort. Even traditionally neutral species like the Nidar declared their support. The Threx held out longest, but their position became increasingly untenable as they found themselves diplomatically isolated. When evidence emerged that the Threx had committed similar atrocities against other species personnel, their remaining allies began distancing themselves. Finally, in a ceremony that drew representatives from across the galaxy, the Interstellar Convention on the Treatment of Prisoners was formally ratified by over 80% of Concord species. Supreme Counselor Zuri, resplendent in ceremonial Kathari regalia, presided over the signing. The Threx delegation, led by a visibly humiliated General Aeroth, was the last to approach the document. As he pressed his scaled hand to the authentication plate, Aeroth found himself looking directly at Ambassador Sharp. "Your species fights differently than ours, human," he muttered, quiet enough that only she could hear. "But make no mistake, this is still combat." "The difference, General," Evelyn replied, just as quietly, "is that we prefer to win without unnecessary casualties." On either side, as part of the settlement, the Threx agreed to not only financial reparations to the families of the executed Marines, but also the construction of a memorial at the site of the executions. The monument would bear the names of the 12 humans and a pledge that such acts would never again be sanctioned by any civilized power. In the months that followed, Earth's position within the Galactic Concord transformed dramatically. What had begun as grudging acceptance of a primitive newcomer had evolved into wary respect, and in some cases, outright fear. Trade agreements flourished, particularly in sectors where Earth's unique biological sciences offered solutions to problems that had plagued other species for generations. Cultural exchanges brought human art, music, and literature to worlds thousands of light years from Earth, while alien philosophies and perspectives began enriching human thinking. More telling was a subtle shift in military postures throughout nearby sectors. Species that had once conducted operations with impunity now proceeded with caution, aware that Earth's intelligence capabilities and hidden fleets might be watching. The execution of prisoners, once overlooked as an unfortunate reality of interstellar conflicts, declined sharply across all theaters. 1 year after the ratification of the convention, Evelyn stood alone in her private quarters aboard Terra Pacem. On her desk sat a small holographic display showing the faces of the 12 Marines whose deaths had changed the course of Earth's integration into the galactic community. She touched the control, and the images shifted to show the memorial that now stood on a distant world. Simple but powerful, it featured 12 pillars surrounding a central flame, with an inscription in multiple languages. Their sacrifice revealed the true strength of humanity. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Admiral Hassan's holographic image appeared, his expression grave. Ambassador, we've detected unusual movement along the Cygnus border. 3 Kellery transport vessels have violated the arms limitation zones. Initial scans suggest they're carrying prohibited weapons technology. Evelyn nodded, unsurprised. Peace was always temporary. What mattered was establishing the rules of engagement that would govern inevitable conflicts. Dispatch Ghost Fleet units to shadow the transports, she instructed. Standard protocol. Observe but don't engage unless they threaten Earth interests. And send a diplomatic query through official channels asking for clarification of their activities. You don't seem concerned, Hassan observed. I'm not, Evelyn replied. The Kellery are testing boundaries, seeing if our resolve has weakened. They'll discover it hasn't. She glanced at the memorial hologram once more. We made a promise to those 12 Marines, Admiral. Earth will never again be underestimated. As the Admiral's image faded, Evelyn moved to the viewport. Beyond the reinforced transparency, Earth hung in the darkness, a blue and white jewel against the vast backdrop of stars. Beautiful, seemingly fragile, yet harboring unexpected depths of determination. The galaxy had mocked Earth's representative, until she said, "You killed our prisoners of war." Now, they would never forget that beneath humanity's diplomatic smiles lay an iron will and the patience to enforce it. Evelyn Sharp raised her travel mug in a silent toast to the fallen and to the future they had secured. A future where humanity's voice would never again be dismissed in the great council chambers of the stars.